All right. Thanks, Humphrey. So I see Castro in chat is asking us to record. So probably you can start the recording. Okay. So
Recording.
I will just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so yeah, on the introduction, my name is Julia Muiruri, as you've heard, an academic cloud advocate at Microsoft. And just some intro information about myself is that as a student, I pursued some certifications. So I have a certification in Azure Fundamentals, in Power Platform Fundamentals, and Microsoft Security, Compliance, and Identity Fundamentals. And funny thing, one way or another, these different certifications have helped me in my personal projects and in projects that ended up being like, big projects that also evolved into a startup. So I'll be talking more about that during this call. So in my current role, my focus is on fusion development. So that is mainly about how code-first developers can work with the low-code developers. So you would find that most of my posts these days are usually more on fusion development. That's because that's my current area of focus. And if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, you can find me at Julia Muiruri. So just to add on my introduction, the reason why we actually have this call is because before I joined Microsoft this year, I was a former operations officer at TransLab Limited. And so that is part of the experience I had that I'm going to share with you during this call so that you can see and talk more about the business model canvas and how your project actually grows from a single idea to a project, then to a business eventually. So just the outline of the agendas. So I'm just going to share the journey that TransLab had, just from the ideation to the business piece of it. Then share some tools tools that you can use for your project. Have an introduction to the business model, then talk deeply into the business model canvas, and then we can look at one example if time allows. So these are some of the questions that we're going to answer throughout the session. But if that is not achieved, just let me know at the end of the session. So are you able to still see my screen?
Yes.
So I was just monitoring the chat on different device and it went off. So, but it's okay if you can still see. So I don't have the access to the chat. So in case of any questions, Humphrey, maybe you can just prompt me. So just a brief on Ryan's lab journey. So this was actually, we didn't even start as Ryan's lab. So if I can just go back to where everything began, this was back in 2019. So this was way before I even joined this project. And one of the project initiators actually comes from a community where animals, the wild animals, get to just invade the human settlements. And this causes a lot of property destruction and loss of human life. So I don't know if you can actually just look up poaching and human wildlife conflict, you will be surprised that this is actually a very huge issue that is affecting people. Most of us who don't really live close to game reserves, we might not really understand the intensity of this, but for this particular student, that was a case that was affecting his own community. So most ideas, someone just sits and thinks of an idea. So today you just think of an idea you can do, you start writing code, you start doing this project. But in this case, this idea actually originated from a problem that was being faced that was affecting more than one person. So a whole community was suffering from this problem. And so this student decided to do something about it. So he had the skills and he decided to probably build some tech solution to address this issue. So by the end of 2019, he teamed up with one of his schoolmates and formed a project called Wild Eye. So the plan was to just have a camera trap that would automatically capture images and send notifications to the game rangers whenever an animal attempts to cross, the boundary and attempts to enter the human settlement areas. And so that's the project they submitted for the Sigfox challenge. I think it was towards the end of December. Mind you, at this point, I had not even joined this project. And so during that time, this project won an award. And that's when they saw that, hey, so this is actually a project that is fit in terms of the technologies it's using and in terms of the problem fit that it was providing. So there was a problem and it was a solution to address that problem. So that was in 2019, the end of 2019. Then 2020, we have the Imagine Cup competition. I know most of us have heard about it. So this team decided to resubmit their project for this competition. Now, at this point, I know many of us have a lot of projects. You probably have a project on your PC right now, but in this case, I don't know how many hackathons you've actually attempted to join your project. So in this case, this team decided to resubmit their project, and that's when they decided to add someone else. So that's when I was brought into the project just to try and help with the business analysis of this project, since now we were going to a hackathon level. So early 2020, we submitted our proposal to the Imagine Cup. It was a very long shot because we knew Imagine Cup was a global wide competition. And at that time, we really didn't think we had the capability or even the ability to go far with this project. But we just wanted to see how it was going to turn out. So we just submitted that project. We had nothing to lose. So little did we know that that project would actually gain a lot of, attract a lot of attention from different people. And so at around, I think it was March, and remember we applied with hundreds of other projects from the EMEA region. So that is Europe and Middle East Africa region. So the Imagine Cup actually has those different regions. So the first round, which is online, you submit your project and it's on a region level. So at this point, we knew that we would get a lot of competitors in terms of the projects being submitted. Little did we know that towards the end of March, we got an email telling us that out of the 100 projects from the whole of the EMEA region, your project was among the top 10. So to us, that was a very, very surprising, piece of information, because this was actually at the beginning, it was just a project to try and solve something in our community. At this point, we were now to compete on a global level, because we were to actually travel to Netherlands for an in-person presentation. But a week to the travels and presentation, COVID decided to come through and cancel the flight for us. So we had to do this virtually. So at this point, remember, this is a project that at first it was just a project we were thinking about, but now you can see that everyone was now aware of what we were doing. They saw the need of this and they were actually supporting it. So we competed in the regional finals. And to our surprise again, out of the 10, we matched position 3. So that was the end of our Imagine Cup journey, but it was the beginning of a different journey that no one of us was actually aware of. So to get to the next level, we needed to be among the top 2, but we emerged number 3. So we were not able to go to the next level, but good thing that one of the teams that was progressing on was actually a team from Kenya, JQuat, called the Knights. So they were building a weeding bot. So for us, that was the journey in Imagine Cup. Then after the presentations at the regional finals, we now started getting a lot of attention. So you'd find that Microsoft wrote a blog about us, our university writes a blog about us, and that attracted a lot of attention. Then sometime in 2020 still, we applied for the Kenya Award. So that is the Kenya National Innovation Agency Award. So if you're not aware of this, every year, Kenya has 4 awards, where in case you have a project, you can submit it in 4 different categories and you can get a financial grant. Now, we just decided to send an application, see how it goes. And to our shock, we just saw a blog being published by Kenya that we were one out of very many projects. So we were the top 4 projects that were getting a financial award to further our project. And that was actually very surprising because you realize that this was still a project that no one knew would go to this extent. And now everyone believes it to an extent that they actually want to support it financially. So we got a financial grant. And right now, as we speak, Ryan's Lab we actually had to change the name from Wildeye to Ryan's Lab simply because we had to register the business. And right now, Ryan's Lab is a small startup that is working to provide this solution and actually change lives in our countries. So the reason why I shared that is because I want you to see that this is a project that no one actually knew how far it would go, but in the long run, see how far it actually went. So I think having gone through that experience, I would like to just share these 4 points with you today, that any project you probably have right now, you may not even be aware of the direction it's going to take. So you may as well be prepared for the best. So if it's a project that someone can even be interested in buying, have you prepared yourself in a way that you can have that conversation? Or if it's a project that months later you would decide to transition into a business, would you have set it up in a way that you can actually transition to a business and succeed? So you actually never know the future of your project, but it would be safe to actually be prepared for the best. So if it's a project that in the long run can end up putting money in your pocket, then that's not a bad thing. Then the next thing is that the best time for you to start a long-term project is while you're a student. And you will see shortly why I'm saying that, because all the resources are being made available for free just for students. But once you graduate, once you're no longer a student, everyone would be like, okay, you're just hustling like us, so come and hustle with us. So no one is going to give you anything for free, but as long as you're a student, everyone understands that, hey, this is someone who is looking to learn. So all of these resources that you need to even do very big things with your projects are actually being provided for you, to you for free. Then the other thing, if you see any opportunity for visibility, go ahead and take it. We have this program, the Game of Learners program. That program actually creates a lot of visibility and helps you in your own personal career journey. Then finally, in case you're working on a hackathon project or it's a business idea, whatever it is, you really need to have that proof of concept, that prototype that is working, that you will speak to anyone you meet, because that is exactly what you need to take any next step you might want to do. So I said I will mention a few of the tools and opportunities that it's very, very easy to overlook this, but believe you me, if you go through this route, you won't even need to have an investor give you money to further your project. We have all these available opportunities, but as I said, they're there because you're a student. Once you graduate, they're no longer available. So for instance, if you need your project or your business to be utilizing the cloud, you don't have to pay for all this while you're a student. So if it's for cloud support, we have the Azure for Students benefit that will give you 100 USD worth of annual credits for you to further your project. So that's definitely something you can utilize for a project that you can also transition into a business. Then we have the Student Ambassador Program. I know most of you have, actually all of you have heard us talk about this, but the thing that is easy to overlook is that every month you will be getting 150 USD worth of Azure credits that no one is actually following up to know how are you utilizing them. So if you use this to build a project that will end up in being the next big thing, no one is actually stopping you from doing that. So it's something you can always take advantage of. Then we have the AI for Earth grant. So this is a grant that we actually applied for. We got 15,000 USD worth of Azure credits that really helped transition our project to a startup where we were able to have our cloud infrastructure. Remember, since this is an IoT solution, we were using the IoT hub on Azure. So if we were to pay for that, it would be very, very impossible for us to actually meet those limits. So this is definitely something you can check out, and I will paste the links on chat for you to have a deeper look. And for this AI for Earth grant is specific for projects that touch on the climate field. So if you have any project that has any connection to the climatic field, this is definitely something you can check out. You can easily apply, and once you get this grant, there's a lot you can do on Azure without having to pay for this from your own pocket. Then we have the Imagine Cup competition. So something, I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you actually emerge to be a winner in any regional level, so for us, we emerged runners up, but we're able to get cloud support, like additional 15,000 USD worth of Azure credits. So you can imagine how that helped us in terms of our cloud infrastructure. Then if you even get to the World Championships, you get 50,000 USD. So actually just do the conversion, see how much we're actually talking about, because this is all you need to even run a whole business. And remember, at this point, you've not even gone back to your pocket. So that is the possibilities that are there. So in case you're looking for like financial resources, the Imagine Cup itself is like the first opportunity, because as regional winners, again, you're given a cash prize just to further your project. This is money that has no strings attached to it. So it's money for you to actually advance your project. And no one is telling you to actually build a business out of it. It's just for you to take your project to the next level. Then in case you get to the World Championships, you can see the amount of money that we're talking about in your accounts. That happens almost instantly. We had last year's winners from USIU, so you can imagine how their lives are right now with that kind of money. So yeah, these are the possibilities that I would say most of us overlook. But once you imagine if you get all of this support for your project, you'd actually never have to get back to your pocket and do anything about it. So about the Kenya National Innovation Agency, so they also have a program where they offer grants to projects. So you can also check out their Twitter, just follow them and see if they can actually support your project in terms of finances. Then any hackathon that you apply for, most of them usually have prizes that can help you take your project to the next level. In terms of mentorship, the Imagine Cup again has a mentorship program. So for us, before we even submitted our project for the regional level, we had a Microsoft employee who worked with us throughout the project, talking to us about it, helping us just better our presentation and really ace that presentation. Then the other thing, we have the Microsoft for Startups program. So basically, in case you have a startup and you want that general type of mentorship, this is definitely a program you can look into. So I will share these links with you. Let me actually do that right now. So in case of any questions, just let me know, but I will just post this here for you. Yeah, so enough about that. So on the business model, something that you need to understand is, why are we talking about having a business model? So it's important to know that if you ever want to transition a project into a business, this is something that every business, either from a very big business like Uber or whichever business you can think about, or a very small business, one thing they have in common is that they all draft their business model, because this is what describes an organization, what that organization does, what it delivers, who are their customers, what are their goals and strategies. So all of this is covered in a business model. So think of it as a framework that describes what a business does, what are the resources that it uses, then how does that business create value for its end users. So basically, when you hear anyone talking about a business model, that is exactly what they're referring to. So we have like two different types of business models. So we have one called the persona canvas, which we will not look into today. So today we'll just talk more about the business model canvas. So this is one type of tool that businesses use to sit and analyze their ideas, their projects, because by the time you as a consumer or as a customer, by the time you sit and you decide to like subscribe to a certain service or buy a certain product, those that are creating that product actually sat down and drafted this so that they can know how to better serve you as a customer. So when you're on the other side of that table, so when you're the one who is creating that project, when you're the one who is creating that startup, this is something you also need to do at the very beginning, because if you don't get the business model right, most likely everything else you do from there, if you put like 4 hours a day of coding, if you've not really understood why you're doing it, it might end up not providing any value at all. So you might see as if it's something very beneficial, but if you do not analyze the impact that it will have, the business model piece of it, you'll actually find yourself not having any impact at all. So when you're talking about the business model canvas, this is a tool that actually has like 9 segments. So it's divided into 9 segments, as you can see on the slide. And we have some numbers on each rectangle. So the business model canvas actually has some form of format where you follow. So you can see we have the customer segment. So that's the first piece. When you're thinking about that business or that project, who do you have in mind? Who is the intended user? So that is the very first thing you think about, because without that customer segment, then everything else won't make sense. So think of it this way. If you're building something today, so let's say you decided to build a learning platform or an e-health system, when you're building that project today, you're actually doing it for the person who's going to use it. So everything you're doing is for the sake of that person who will sit down, log into your app, visit your website, or do whatever it is they are going to do on your system. Then once you've identified your customer, you jump to number 2, which is on the value proposition. Now, this is very important because this is the whole reason why you're actually engaging with your customer. So this is like your selling point. Then number 3, you think about the channels. How are you reaching to your customers? Then number 4, the customer relationships. How are you building that customer relationships with your user? Then number 5, think about the resources that your project needs. Are we talking about laptops? Are we talking about offices? What are we talking about in terms of the resources that you need to bring your business into life? Then we have the key activities. So in the life cycle of your project, what activities will you be doing? Then we have the key partners. For you to actually achieve the goal that you define, who do you need to partner with? Then number 8 and 9, these two go hand in hand. That is the revenue streams. Basically, how are you making money? And the cost structure, how are you using the money that you get? So this is basically the Canvas model, and we'll just look briefly into each and every part of it. So we'll start with the customer segment. As I said, this is like the most important piece of it. If you don't have any customer listed on this box, then everything else you're doing will most likely not make sense. So when you're talking about the customer segment, you need to think, who exactly is your customer? So probably you can even try and visualize this. If you have any project you've been working on, think of the end user. Who is going to use that project? Who is going to use that system? So that is the person you need to have in mind. And you also need to identify who are the most important customers for you, because without the customers, then your product won't have any consumption. So if it even gets to a business level, I don't know if you've heard that we have businesses with very great ideas, but they have no customers and they end up just shutting down. That is because there's no that understanding of who the customer is and how to even engage with them. So more on the customer segmentation. When you're thinking about your customer, there are some items you really need to be keen on. So in terms of the demographics, the geographic location, social economic status, and the lifestyle. So the reason why we have such information being important to you is, at the end of the day, you want to know, if I produce this product, will this user be able to buy it? That is why you need to be keen on like the social economic status. You even need to go to an extent where you sort of understand, for your intended user, approximately how much do they earn, so that you see, if you produce this product, will they be able to afford it? Because you need to understand that if it's a business, this business needs to generate income. So, and this income will not come from you, it will come from your customer. So whenever you're thinking about the customer segment, you need to think about all these details in terms of the geographic location. You need to know, where do I need to market this product? Where do I get the person who's going to buy whatever it is I'm building? So you also need to understand that so that you define your marketing strategy as well. In terms of demographics, you need to go down to the nitty-gritties. You need to be very, very granular with the data that you collect. Are you targeting, let's say, people in the middle class or first class or lower class? This will help you make decisions even in terms of how to package your product. And that's why you find that we have businesses that are really thriving and businesses doing a similar thing are not working, simply because they didn't really take that time to sit and think more about the users at the very end. Then the next portion is the value proposition. Now, as I said, this is the selling point. This is what you're taking to your customer. So the questions that you ask yourself include, why should customers buy from you? So you're building this project. Why should I subscribe to what you're selling to me? Why should I use your platform and not another platform? Then in terms of the value, what pain point are you addressing for your users? So something to note is that with customers, you might have a very, very good idea, a very, very good project, but if you're not really solving a problem they're having, then they won't really subscribe to what you're doing. So which pain will you be taking away from them if they actually bought your product or if they subscribed to whatever service you're offering? Then which customer needs are you solving? So that is what I've just talked about. So in terms of your offering, this is the problem you're facing, and this is what I am doing to solve that problem. That is the communication you need to pass across when you're talking about the value proposition. Now, the other thing you also need to notice is that you're not the only person providing that value. So this is where you actually think about your competitors. So if your competitors are doing something similar to you, you need to make sure that yours stands out, yours is appealing, yours is credible, that everyone would actually prefer yours because there's some credibility to it, and it's clear to your users on what they will be benefiting from. So just a few things to note about the value proposition. Remember, this is what gives you a competitive advantage. So in terms of what customers are usually looking for, they're looking for high performance in a system, right? So no one wants to spend 10 minutes waiting for a website to load. Absolutely no one is waiting to do that. So you need to also understand, as the person who is designing a product, and this is also a different point. When you're talking about the design of your product, you need to understand, how is the user experience going to be like? So are they going to prefer this or switch to something else? Not because you are not offering something good, but because the performance was poor or the user experience wasn't the best. Then in terms of price, and I know you all see this case where probably a lot of people are selling the same thing. So you'd find that the prices either go extremely low, because everyone knows that if I go slightly higher, no one is going to buy from me. They're going to buy from everyone else apart from me. So you also need to know about the positioning of your price. So if you're talking about selling to people in the high class, you won't even sell to them using the same amount as those from a lower class, simply because you understand your customer. Then there's that bit of the value proposition. Then in terms of convenience, you need to ensure that the solution you're providing also has some convenience tied to it, that users will actually opt for your system as compared to others. So I said that this is the point where you actually think about your competitors. So you also need to understand, who are you competing with? Then how are they positioning themselves so that you know where to fit in? And then in terms of the market, who plays a key role in the market? Now, I don't know if you've had something called market barriers before. So a challenge that startups face is that we have existing market barriers. So these are the big dogs in the market, the people who actually determine how much they're going to sell things. So if you want to enter that same industry, they will actually block you because they don't want any other competitors. So that has been like the biggest challenge even for startups. But I know next week there's a session to speak more about how the startup ecosystem is, but you also need to understand that as you're defining your business model, as you're talking about the value proposition, what are the competitors doing? What can you do better? How can you reposition yourself so that you have an advantage over them? So yeah, so this slide speaks more on the competitive advantage. So you also need to you really need to define things that you'll be doing differently from what is being done. Then the question that you ask yourself is that simply because you're not the first to build that product, there are other products that exist. What are you doing differently, and why would I buy yours and not your neighbors? So that is a question that you need to really ask yourself. So yeah, I had talked about this point. So let me just go to the next slide. Yeah, so sorry, is someone saying something? Okay, there's someone who's unmuted. Probably you can mute yourself. So we've talked about the two channels. So the two portions of the business model canvas. So that is the customer segmentation, then the value proposition. The third one is the channels. So once you've identified your customer and what value you're providing for them, how will you get to your customer? So if you determine that your customer lives in a certain area, what channel are you going to use to communicate to them? If you've discovered that most of your target audience spend a lot of time on TikTok or on YouTube, wherever they are, what channels are you now going to use to make your product available and easily accessible to your identified customers? So this is something you need to know, because this also has some resource attachment to it, because if you're talking about channels, more often than not, you actually have to have some financial investment in this. So at the very beginning, you need to think about the channels that you're going to use to get and to deliver your product, to where your customers are. Then in terms of the channels, which one is cost effective? So remember, you wouldn't want to use like 70% of whatever you will be getting to set up the communication channel. So this is something you need to think in terms of you as a user, you as a producer, and for your customer as a user, which channel can you both find yourselves to be able to have that successful communication and delivery of product. So that is also something you need to think about as you're structuring your business model. Then after thinking about the channels, remember that is like the first touch point between you and your customer, how you're going to get them. But after you get your product to your customer, how then do you maintain that relationship with them? How do you retain that relationship with them? Now, a common way that has been used by most systems that we all use is the 30-day trial period. So if you think about it keenly, if someone gives you a certain service for 30 days, what they're doing is that they first found you as a user, then they're now building that customer relationship with you, that they're giving you 30 days to talk to them, to interact with their product, to retain you, and then slowly they will now start growing that relationship with you. And then you find that sometimes after that 30-day trial, you feel like you can't leave that product alone. So you just end up subscribing to us at a different model just to keep using that service. So what that business did is that as they were sitting down and talking about their customer relationships, they decided that for us to keep and retain our customers, we are going to engage them for 30 days for free without them having to go back to their pockets. So you can think of it as a model to retain their customers. So in short, as you're also building your business model for your project, how are you going to keep and retain the customers that you succeed in getting? So if you've identified most of your customers are on YouTube, so probably as a channel, you decide that I'm going to use YouTube ads to get to them. So once they click on the ad, how are you going to retain them? How are you going to ensure that after the 30 days, they then come back to you to purchase your product? So in terms of customer relationship, that is also something you really need to be keen on. Then the other piece of the business model canvas is the key resources. So for you to succeed in your project, for you to succeed in your business, which are the unique and strategic resources that you need? So resources could be in many forms, right? So if let's say right now, most of us probably are in school. So a key resource that you're using is your time. So your time as your student, you'd find that maybe after a whole day of lessons, you go back to your apartment and you start writing code, and you write code for 3 hours. That is a resource that you're using and you're putting in for your project, so that at the end of the day, if someone even says, hey, I want to buy this from you, you're able to say that this cost me this amount of hours, so this is how much it's going to cost for. And these are the things you need to think about in terms of understanding the value of something you're working on. Because if you don't understand that, you can actually undervalue something that you've been spending a lot of time working on. So other examples on the resources, if you're talking about a business, would you need some physical space to take it to the next level? Would you need some financial resources? So for most projects, we've been doing a lot of bootstrapping. So you just get some amount from your pocket money or family and friends just to support your business, take it to the next level. So in terms of finances, what resources does your project need? In terms of human resources, we need to get some staff to help out with, getting the business to the next level. Then intellectual and legal resources. So when you think about the nature of your project, are these the type of resources that you might also require? Then number 6, we have the key activities. So you also need to understand at the end of the day, what activities do we do to deliver the value proposition that we promised to our customers. So that is also something you need to be keen on, understand what you're doing. And then finally, before you get to the revenue streams, you also need to think more about the partners. For you to achieve your promise to your user, who do you need to partner with? Then if you find them, how do you communicate to them and build that relationship with them? So that is like the top part of the business model. So at the bottom part where we have the key revenue streams and the cost structure, basically now we're thinking about money. It doesn't hurt anyone if someone sees value in what you're doing and decides to put money in it. So you need to think about how will your business make money, then what value is the service currently available for. So if you want to build the next, I don't know what example I can use, but if you want to come up with the next Uber, how are the current Uber charges? Then when you come with your product in the market, what are you going to do differently? So that also determines how much you're going to be selling your product or service for. Then what is your unique strategy? Because for someone to go back to their pockets and give you money, you need to have something that is unique, something they've not seen before. Then in terms of your customers, how much are they willing to pay? So this is research that most of us fail to do, because sometimes we assume that since they've been paying this much for certain services, if I come with the same amount of money, they're going to buy it. But this is actually research you need to know and understand from your users. That's why, if you can remember on the very first slide, we were talking about the customer segmentation. You need to know at the end of the month, how much money are they getting, for you to know what amount can you play around with for them to be willing to pay for your service. So that is in terms of the revenue streams. Then we have the cost structure. So this is basically everything that you incur, any kind of cost that you incur in building your product or your project or your service. So something to take note of is that when you're thinking of your revenue stream and your cost structure, they need to always balance, because you cannot have a cost structure that outweighs the revenue stream. That means you're spending more than you're earning. So this is something that you really need to be keen on, so that your business doesn't end up closing because you're not able to sustain it financially. So that's basically it about the business model canvas. It's just that simple table, but once you are building your project, and I've also seen in hackathons, this is something that is being followed up by judges. So you need to understand who are your customers, what value are you providing, the key communication channels, how are you going to retain a relationship with them, your key partners, your resources, and then on the cost structure and the revenue streams. So I've rushed a bit because of time. I don't know if you have any questions. Let me just check on chat.
There's no question.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any questions, so probably we can do an example. So the Uber. So I know all of us understand the Uber business model. So we've all used any transport service. So I just want us to, in the next few minutes, just answer a few questions in terms of the Uber business, how you understand it. So probably if we can have it as an interactive session, maybe for the next like 5 minutes. Let me check what the time is. Yeah, so for like the next 5 minutes, probably we can just have a discussion on the Uber business. So from how you understand it, let me go back to the slide. So from how you understand Uber, who do you think is Uber's biggest customer? So if you can come off mute, that's good. We'll try and access the chat. So anyone can just contribute so that we can have an engaging session. So when you think of Uber, who do you think is the biggest customer? Anyone?
You and I.
Okay, you and I. Any other? Do they have any other customer? Sorry, I didn't get that. There's some background noise.
People
okay, so
who need affordable cab rides.
Okay, so that's you and I think there's someone who had said that. So that's true. The workforce, I think you need to be a little more specific.
I have a different opinion. As much as it's you and I, from what I gathered is that Uber has different segments. Maybe you can travel with a small cab, with 7-seater, with maybe a Prado if you can. So I think depending on the person's luxury, it still settles down to you and I, but it depends with how luxurious the person wants to travel.
All right, so sorry, I don't know who gave that response, but yeah, thank you for that input. So what I would say is that yes, you have a very, very valid point, but that is not under the customer segment. That is more on the value proposition. Because remember, as much as we are saying you and I are customers of Uber, when it comes to the value, probably for me, I want that luxurious state. Maybe I want that Prado experience. Now that is the value that Uber is providing to me. There's someone who just needs to get into a moving object and get to somewhere else. That is also a value that Uber is providing to them. So back to your point, that is more on what you have on the value proposition, but then we're talking about the customer segment. So when Uber was designing this and they wanted to go to the market, who are they thinking about? So far we've talked about you and me. Pius is saying the workforce. So I don't know, you're saying people working on the normal 8 to 5 roles. Yes, those are me. Those are me and you. So it's the same thing. Castro has a very interesting answer, that is drivers. So we've talked about you and I. So these are the passengers. We also have the drivers who are also customers of Uber. So if you think about these car owners, they are also a different now segment of our customers. So far we've identified two. That is the passengers, yourself and myself. then you have the drivers and the car owners. Remember, those are also on the business model, but as customers, because there's also something for them. They bring in a vehicle, and there's something that they're also getting in return. So yes, Castro, thank you for that response. Can anyone else think of any other person that would fit into the customer segment for Uber? Just a second. So any other response? Sorry, I had to go back to James.
Yeah, if you need to send a package to someone, nowadays you can use Uber for that.
Right. So how can you describe the user from that illustration? It's a very valid point. So who can you say is a customer?
People like, okay, sometimes people are running businesses, so those who are running businesses and need to send their products. Yeah.
Awesome. That's actually a perfect explanation, because we have the business people who also need to deliver the product. So they are also customers of Uber. Then Humphrey is talking about if you need fast food, they do offer delivery. So you can see that Uber, to anyone else, when you're talking about Uber, everyone just thinks about getting from point A to B, but there's so much to it in terms of who is benefiting. So if we can go back to the value, we had talked about providing, if you need a luxurious mode of transportation, then Uber probably is solving that problem for you. So in terms of the value proposition, what else can we say Uber is providing to the identified customers? So I think this should be pretty easy because we've identified a few customers.
I think it offers convenience in that if, like I said, you're running a business, now you don't need to get the hassle of delivering the product. You can let Uber handle that.
Yeah, exactly. So for the business user, the pain point that Uber addresses is that they worry, how will my product get to my user? So that is one pain point that Uber is addressing for them. Accessibility and convenience, yes. So I don't know if you've ever tried a different platform and then someone tells you, Apana, I will go for Uber because it's safe and my security is guaranteed. So I don't know if you've ever had that before. I know I've had it. So even in terms of accessibility and credibility, Uber, where Uber is currently positioned in the market, they have that advantage over any other probably business that is also in the same field as they, because they've also assured their customers that we have the credibility tied to what we are talking about. So if you want a ride, even if it's at night, probably you'd go for Uber as compared to any other new service that might come up. So yes, thank you, Humphrey, for that. Anyone else? I see time is far much gone. I don't know if we'll be able to complete this. So, okay, let me ask a question. I don't know if either of you have ever used these taxis in town, like any car with that yellow tag, Palaju taxi. So in terms of the prices, how would you compare Uber and those taxis? Does anyone have any experience with them?
Uber's is like more affordable, way more affordable.
Exactly. And in terms of the taxis and the Ubers, who came into the market first?
Those yellow taxis.
Exactly. So those yellow taxis are usually very, very pricey. And in this case, you'll find that Uber, what they did, they just had to go a more digital way, and they were able to lower these prices, and they're getting more and more customers. So even in terms of the prices that these services provide, Uber was able to get like an advantage for the users, because everyone is always wondering, should I really be spending this much on a ride? So yes, in terms of the prices, Uber was able to beat these people there. Sorry if you own a cab. I mean no offense. Anything else in terms of the value? I know there's a lot, so because of time, probably could you mention something on, let's say, the customer relationship? How do you think Uber has been able to maintain a customer relationship with you?
The random offers people get, like just siku moja unaweza amka upate kona 15% off for the whole week, so keep using the app.
Exactly. Anyone else? Okay, all right. So I'll also talk about, remember we have two users for Uber, right? Kuna wenye passengers, and then we have those drivers. So for the drivers, how are they being motivated, right? So in terms of their customer relationship, ni nini hata wanafanyiwa?
They're being connected to customers.
That's
Initially.
So that is more of a value proposition. The pain point they had was sikuwa ninaweza kupata customers, but from this platform, I'm able to instantly connect to people who need rides. So that is more on a value proposition. Something we can think of, which is a customer relationship. Yes, Alvin, go ahead.
I was thinking about maybe the way the customers also rate the Uber drivers. If you give them a higher rating, will they not also get more customers?
Exactly. That is what I was looking for. Yeah, that's the answer I was actually looking for, because that simple rating that you give them actually goes a long way in helping them earn more the next time, because they will get more rides. Basically, that's review and rating that you give them. So that is also a strategy that Uber is using to ensure they have something for their own users who are the drivers. So probably in terms of partners, can we think of who Uber has partnered with?
You know, one from the top of my head is Jay-Z.
Wait, is?
Sorry?
Sorry, I didn't get your response.
The one person who comes at the top of my head when Uber comes to mind is usually Jay-Z, because he's a partner. I don't know if the whole thing of him being an influencer accelerated the emergence of Uber. Maybe that's, I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for.
Okay, so what I would do, because of time, I would ask you to think more of it. Is it falling under a key partner or a channel? Because remember, a channel is how does this business get to its customers? So one example of a channel is using ads or using influencers. Because if you have a project today and your key customer is, let's say, Gen Z, the young generation, what are you going to do? You're going to get, let's say, TikTok influencers to talk about your project. So in that case, that is a channel that you're using to get to your users. So probably you can think more on that. So something I was thinking of is, in terms of partners, Uber uses a lot of services. They have their payment providers, they have the map providers. So you can already see the kind of partnerships they're having. So because of time, probably we can leave it at that. But I hope now we sort of have an understanding when it comes to the business model, what are people thinking about, and how can you draft one for your own business. So before we leave, I just wanted to make one announcement that this session was like just a part one of the basic business model canvas. And so next week, we have a session where we'll be inviting the head of Innovation Hub at Sote Hub. So he's called Kenneth Njihia. So what he's going to do is that he's going to talk about the startup ecosystem. So in case you now want to enter into the startup market, how is it like for you? What challenges are you going to face? What can you have at the top of mind to have an advantage? Then even in terms of presentation skills, if let's say you have a hackathon, you need to present, what do you have in your presentation? In case you want to make a presentation even to the investors, what should you be looking for? So Humphrey, probably you can paste these links on chat. So if you also have like friends who would like to venture into the entrepreneurship side of things, invite them for this session. So today was just part one on how can you have your business, your project, then how can you structure it for success as a business. But kwa ground vile kuko, when it comes to startups in Kenya, especially in Kenya, we'll have that conversation next week with the head of Innovation Hub. So that's also a session to look forward to. And in case you also have people you can advise to attend these sessions, feel free to invite them. So yeah, during your own free time, also think about business model, yeah, Airbnb. Yeah, theirs is actually pretty interesting if you can just sit and think about how these people are making money. So you can also think about their business model. And yeah, I think that's all from me. I know time is far much gone. So Humphrey, I will just hand it over to you to finalize in case you have any other announcements.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, Julia, for such a wonderful presentation. I hope everyone now, just almost everyone now will come out of here and go and brainstorm something to start on a startup on maybe on his or a project that is lying back somewhere, and how he or she can revive it and yeah, go and make some impact with it. And maybe by doing that, having its business model, yeah, you'll be out and shining in the next few days. Yeah, so thanks so much for joining, guys. Yeah, I'll be sharing the link, the recording, in case you wanna follow up again, and in case for those who did not manage to join. So yeah, let's meet on the next session on Wednesday, which will be on startup ecosystem. Yeah, see you then, guys. Yeah, maybe if there is another question, we can just ask. Yeah, before we wind up the call. Yeah, but I have nothing more to say. So see you. Bye.